Miami Hurricanes are 7-0, and it's Florida State week. Who's going to stop this offense?
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And of course, when I say who's going to stop this offense, the flip side would be who's our defense going to stop? We will find out. I am Alex Dono, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC, and writer for Canes County at Rivals. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. It was a shootout. Now, at least Miami didn't have to climb from 25 points down this time, but it was tense. There were nervous moments where you were thinking, man, is Miami going to make a stop? What's going on? You give up a special teams touchdown, but the Hurricanes, they went 1-0 on Saturday. They went 7-0 to start the year, 52-45. The Hurricanes beat the Louisville Cardinals. Very happy to bring in good friend of ours, good friend of the show, who's going to help us on this episode. We'll start hate week up because we do have Florida State in 6 days. We will talk about Miami's defense, and if there's anything to be done to make it just a little bit more efficient for the rest of the year. The running game showed out big. Cam Ward showed up big as always. Brad Tejeda is with us from the awesome Caneswear content that he does. I mean, Brad, is your heart okay? Because they've given us palpitations the last 3 games.
Dono, thank you as always for having me, man. It's always good stopping by the Locked On show. We got that great connection, kind of like Cam and X that you've seen each and every week, right? But
Yes.
Going to this football game, you know, my heart wasn't gut-wrenching like probably the Cal game. I would say that was probably the worst that's happened so far this season. I felt pretty confident going into this game. I think us as fans and just people that, you know, cover this football team and knowing what Louisville was going to bring to the table this weekend at homecoming for them, it was a little frustrating at times, especially on the defense side of the ball, which we'll get into. That, I mean, the impact players, the guys that you had to circle for Louisville that you knew were going to have to play big in order for them to contend in this game, those were the guys that were making plays. We'll get into it, you know, a little later in the show. But, you know, you talk about him, Cam Ward. I mean, guys, I've said it from the beginning before I even put on a Hurricane uniform. There's nobody in the country like Cam Ward, and you're seeing it each and every week, man. And it's just awesome to see. And we talked a little bit before the show. This was probably his best performance he's had from beginning to end throughout the football season so far. And he still has another, you know, notch or ceiling to go, in my opinion. And first drive started out a little rough for him. He probably could have had an early touchdown on Isaiah Horton on a missed opportunity. But you saw after that first drive, man, he was him.
Yeah, and, you know, I agree with you. I personally thought that this was Ward's best overall game in a Miami uniform. And the reason why I felt that way is you got all of the good and none of the bad, right? Like a couple weeks ago after the Virginia Tech game, I described that as the full Cam Ward experience, where you got the incredible plays, the wizardry, the comeback, but you also had multiple turnovers committed in that game. You know, in Cal, he had the pick 6, but then he also had the tremendous plays in the comeback. But this time around, like, this was, you know, he missed a few throws, like you said, but this was an efficient performance. He only had 1 turnover-worthy play in the game, which obviously didn't go for a turnover. And, you know, Ward's final stat line, 319 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. But the funny thing about it, Brad, was despite the fact that, like, I thought that was, and you seem to agree that was his best overall game of the year, it was actually his 3rd lowest Pro Football Focus grade of the season in the 7 games that he's played. So, you know, some of that stuff, it is what it is. But Ward was tremendous. And I thought, to me, though, offensively, and, you know, guys, we will get to the defense. Don't worry. But let's talk about the great, which was the offense. Not only did I think this was Cam Ward's best overall game, but I thought this was overall the best performance Miami's offense has had, not just in scoring 52 points, but this was the balance that we've been looking for all season, Brad, where, yeah, at times earlier this year, we've seen Miami's running game kind of come alive in spurts, like, oh, they were invisible in the first half, but they're showing up in the second half. Or, 2 weeks ago against Cal, they started out well, but then Miami went away from the running game in the second half, and it wasn't clicking in the second half. This time around, and they pushed a couple of buttons, right? Mark Fletcher got the start for the first time this year, played very well. Damien Martinez, who was the second running back, actually had his best game in a Miami uniform, and he was the highest graded PFF player on the team, had that 30-yard touchdown, which turned out to be the game-winning touchdown, where he carried like 12 guys into the end zone. I don't know how that's possible, but he carried a bunch of Louisville guys into the end zone on that play. But BT, from the first quarter through the fourth quarter, the running game was effective, which we had not seen that all year long. It was Martinez, it was Fletcher, and it was also Ajay Allen who got a few carries and made an impact.
Look, you talk about that Martinez carry alone for the touchdown. I mean, I know Marshawn Lynch a couple weeks ago was surprised of what Cam Ward was doing. He talked about it on a podcast or a YouTube show, I believe. But I got to say, him watching Damien Martinez, I'm sure he probably thought a little of himself after that play, because that was a Marshawn Lynch type of play right there, putting the team on his back, literally carrying guys to the end zone was awesome. But when you talk about the 1-2-3 punch, it seemed like we had for the running game against Louisville this past Saturday. I mean, in the games past, you saw Damien Martinez kind of lead things off. And then anytime Mark Fletcher got the ball, something electric happened, something positive gain happened, 5 to 6 yards each time. But by those times, by those opportunities, when it was the next rotation up, or when you wanted to give Fletcher the ball, our defense was giving us, in a hole to where Cam Ward had to throw the ball a lot to get us back in the lead, or at least catch up to the lead. And I think what you saw in this game was we were efficient on all ends on offense, to your point. I mean, 37 rushing attempts. I believe it was the second most rushing attempts we've had all year. And yet every single guy, it seems like we're finally starting to figure out a balance of a great rotation. Maybe start off with Fletcher early on, since he's that big play guy. You kind of move things a different pace in that second, third quarter with an Ajay Allen or Jordan Lyle or even a Chris Johnson. And then you finish things off with a Damien Martinez, who's just a bruiser. And those are going to be late in the football games where guys are tired, especially in the trenches where it matters the most. And you saw Damien Martinez, Fletcher, and Ajay Allen all really do their thing, man. And I think, from an efficient standpoint, not only the running game, I thought what was very impressive that gets overlooked, not only in this game, but every game this season. One of the biggest stats that hurts Miami every single year on the offensive side of the ball is third down efficiency. And we knew going into this game, we are already number one in the country, surprisingly, at 60% on third downs, which is amazing. Crazy stat that you never hear from a Miami Hurricane fan or an offense, right? But we also knew going into this game that this was going to be a high-scoring game. Unless our defense created a lot of turnovers and got this Louisville down early, then this was going to be a high-scoring game, which it was. All their playmakers showed out. Tyler Shuck, Isaac Brown, Ja'Cory Brooks, Colin Lacey as well. All these guys balled for Louisville. It was a 7-point game. And at the end of the day, our third down efficiency, 9 of 15. Yet again, 60% in big-time opportunities when it mattered the most. And when you look at Louisville's, 3 of 12 on third down. That was a huge key stat, in my opinion. And as great as Cam Ward and his decision-making and playmaking ability was throwing the ball, I will say this, another thing that gets overlooked, the opportunities and the times that he ran that football on key plays, key third downs, that is what helped us make those big drives. So shout out to Cam and his mentality for that.
Yeah, it was a third and 17 where he had a big run to pick up a first down. When you're like, for most teams, third and 17. All right, let's start thinking about that punt that's coming up. Not when you have Cam Ward behind center, and also just the overall character of the team, mainly of the offense, because again, the defense was not so good. We'll talk about it, but when you had that time in the third quarter when I could literally feel momentum kicking me in the groin with what Louisville had, when Miami had just gone up 31-17 in the game, and you're starting to think, okay, maybe this is the time when we can kick our feet up, and maybe the defense will play some complimentary football, we'll finish out this game. So right after Miami takes a 31-17 lead, the next kickoff is return 100 yards by Colin Lacey for a touchdown to pull within 7. Miami's next offensive play, That was the one mistake that Fletcher made when he was just trying to do too much with the cut inside with the stiff arm, didn't secure the football. That pops out for a fumble. Louisville's in the red zone. They score a couple plays later. So you had a 14-point lead disappear in the blink of an eye. And Brad, I mean, we've been watching Miami football for a long time. And I know we've said this a lot over the past 3 weeks, but this is another one where a lot of previous Miami teams, when you see a 14-point lead evaporate like that and momentum completely goes the other way, those games usually turn out ugly for us. Instead, Cam Ward in Miami responds with a 75-yard touchdown drive, followed by an 80-yard touchdown drive to at least temporarily regain control of that football game. But that's the sort of stuff we're starting to take that for granted because we're used to this team being clutch. But in previous years, 31-17 turns into 31-31 in 3 plays. Usually that's curtains for us.
No, absolutely. And I know we talk a lot about Cam Ward, but this whole team, I mean, just the way they respond and battle adversity, especially that offensive side of the football. I mean, they respond every single time. You talked about that 14-point swing right there, but right after that, anytime we needed a touchdown, a big play, our offense responded. The Cam Ward and X duo, that's always there, right? But what's going to happen to these other guys? 1 week it's a Jacoby George week. 1 week it's a Isaiah Horton week. You saw this week, it was Sam Brown. Sam Brown really did his thing. 3 catches, 125 yards and a touchdown. These are the big play guys that we've been waiting on, the opportunities, that the reason why we wanted them at Miami, the things that we saw them do at other programs. Guys like Sam Brown, guys like Damien Martinez really had huge games. And just talk about not only just the playmakers that are flourishing throughout this offense each and every week that are given the opportunities and they're exceeding, but this offensive line, right? You get Jalen Rivers back at left tackle, but this offensive line is so diverse to where you saw different ways that they were able to have a Markel Bell and Jalen Rivers in the same rotation at the same time and still benefit on the rushing and passing attack. That is just going to pay dividends moving forward throughout the season when other things do happen in football games, or when you want to have a different rotation based off an impact player or a guy on the opposing end. This isn't their first time being in those scenarios, right? And the fact that we're doing it effectively, we're putting them in those situations at big time moments. That's what you like to see, man. And we're creating big plays, right? And I think, going to the defensive side of the ball, I think Simeon Barrow, right? I think early on, first couple weeks, it was like, hey, Tyler Barron is that guy. He's probably the best player on our defense, right? Well, not so fast. I think Simeon Barrow, shout out to Gabby Rudy. I think he was the first one to say this on Twitter, man. Simeon Barrow might just be the best defensive player on this team and might just be the best defensive lineman we've had in quite a while. I mean, each and every game, the dude gets better and he just shows out and continues to ball. He's a game wrecker, man. That this is a guy that is really going to help complement guys like Elijah Austin, Ruben Bain, Tyler Barron as well. And we'll get to the linebackers and secondary, but just right off the bat, the defensive line, they had to come to play and they had 3 sacks. Wish they had a couple more, but at the end of the game, when they needed to pinch down and really cause havoc for the opposing quarterback, they did that.
Yeah, and if not for the defensive line play being good, I mean, think about how much trouble we'd be in because, we've had some liabilities in the back end. Will the defense be Miami's Achilles heel? We will talk about it, my friends. We got Brad Tejeda with us. I am Alex Dono. We're only getting started. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, Z-Biotics is what you need. When you have a nice weekend of partying, a little drinking, Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. Step 1, drink pre-alcohol. For best results, make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Step 2, drink responsibly. Pace yourself, hydrate, get a good night's sleep. Step 3, enjoy tomorrow. Wake up feeling refreshed and ready to take on the day. Go to zbiotics.com/lockedoncollege to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Locked On College at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/LockedOnCollege and use the code LockedOnCollege at checkout for 15% off. Thank you so much for making this morning after episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We're free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So something, Brad, I saw a lot of this on social media yesterday. I don't know if it was, people being emotional, overreacting. I think I've seen some of this maybe in the live chat today. By the way, we're live right now on YouTube, so make sure you smash that like button. A lot of people don't want to see the defensive coordinator back next year. That they're very upset with Lance Guidry. Is that an overreaction? Because Brad, a lot of times when I'm watching coverage breakdowns and bad angles being taken on tackles, like I don't know, is coaching to blame for that, or is it the Jimmies and Joes on the field? Probably a little bit of both. But I mean, is it an overreaction, the negativity on Lance Guidry right now?
Look, I think it's an overreaction, but I do think the reaction is warranted. I do understand fans that may feel that way. Do I think the guy needs to get fired or anything like that? No. I do agree with, to your last thing, what you said is a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think let's wait maybe another year until we get more of Lance Guidry type of players in this defense, right? I think, honestly, when you look at the safeties in particular, which is his position, which is very concerning, right? So it is a little alarming that your safety group, especially, is taking those bad angles, not making tackles in space, catching their eyes, in the backfield when another guy is already blowing past you, missing assignments. Those are things those are Lance Guidry guys, right? Those are the guys he's bringing in, developing and coaching, especially because that's his position group. So that definitely needs to get better. But I also just think we need to get some more bodies. We got to get some more corners, especially that really can just play some football, get their hat on the ball and just play fundamental football at that. Because I think, unfortunately, that's been one of the most upsetting things that you're seeing in this defense. It's the small things that get taught all the way from the beginning of Pop Warner that is really hurting this football team. It's nothing really crazy. I don't think the scheme does hurt us at times. I don't understand why we run a lot of man, especially when we're going up against a high-powered offense that is going to abuse that. You saw early on that they were able to do that. And a guy like Tyler Shuck will definitely do that. 342 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had no issues scheming up our defense. But I do think we are going to have to get some more Jimmies on this defense, whether it's in the transfer portal or in our recruiting class this upcoming season. But we knew going into this football game, guys, Jeff and Brian Brom especially, this was going to be the most high-powered offense we were going to face all year and the rest of the year probably. Then on top of that, you had a guy in Tyler Shuck that is known for throwing a lot of passing yards, right? And this is a high-powered offense with Isaac Brown and Ja'Cory Brooks and company, right? And all these guys did their thing. Thankfully, our offense is just that great. And sometimes in college football, the hot thing is the offense, right? Sometimes the best offense in the country could kind of band-aid a defense that may be 110th in the country, right? You saw that some years back with LSU. And this is a team that's number one in the country in offense. We do have the number one offense. And this day and age, in 2024, I mean, you got to appreciate what you got as a Miami Hurricane fan. And that also starts with Cam Ward too, right? This is a playmaker, a dynamic quarterback and player in the country. I mean, I tweeted this earlier. I watch football every Saturday, Friday, every week. There's not a player that plays like Cam Ward. There's not a player that's more exciting than Cam Ward. So I think he deserves all the credit that he's been getting.
He's incredible. And I want to bring something up because watching that game yesterday, you had another Miami game, you had an officials review. They go to the command center and it's like this one, this one was so cut and dry. I mean, you could say what you want to about the targeting, no targeting a couple weeks ago. Like, I thought you could definitely make an argument that it was a clean hit by Wes Besaint. And I think if you slowed down the tape, you could see shoulder to shoulder. But at least, like, I will acknowledge, like, that it was a kind of a subjective thing. It could look like targeting to a lot of people, right? Now, the Virginia Tech thing, that was not a catch. I know people badly wanted that to be a catch. It is what it is. But then this time around, Brad, so, Cam Ward, it's hit as he throws, but forward motion, ball travels 10 yards out of his hand. Like, that was a very clear, incomplete pass to me. But of course, ACC officials, they're dopes. We all know it. So they're just like, oh, what do we do? Well, the guy picked it up and ran with it. So let's just let him finish the play. We'll call it a touchdown. Then we'll go and review it. And even those biased announcers, like, they had the rules analyst who was like, everything he saw was like, oh, Miami got away with something there. But even that time, he's like, no, that's a forward pass. And so I joked about it on social media, like, oh no, the haters are going to be angry again, even though they got that call right. And then lo and behold, I see, idiots like Danny Cannell on social media, like, oh, Miami gets away with another one. And they're whining in their basements, these people. It's like, okay, like, I understand. Yeah, Miami has been playing in close games and ACC officials are not known for their competence, but are you really going to say Miami got away with one there? When again, I mean, clear as day, that was I even saw Louisville fans saying that they thought that was a forward pass. I think it's mostly Florida State fans who are saying they thought that was a fumble.
Listen, I don't think it's just Florida State fans. Unfortunately, I mean, this is a Miami Hurricane team that you've seen in the last 3-4 weeks, right? All these wins that have been very close, within a touchdown or less, and it goes back to those little, penalties and challenges on the field that really could have swung things the other way. And the fact that Miami continues to win and continues to push that narrative of opposing fans and media people, especially. I mean, you're seeing how the strength of social media is nowadays, especially, having guys like Pat McAfee on College Game Day all the time and others. Like, this is a thing where when people kind of put this in perspective, like, oh, is Miami getting away with these wins because of these close calls? They're going to start to have this intense moment every single time a big time play is reviewed under Miami, as far as them getting the benefit of it, because going back to 4 weeks ago, when it started there, where ever since then we've had close games until we have a huge blowout and we actually win, like, easily, to where it doesn't come down to maybe 1 or 2 plays or a play call like that. Or if we lose a game and then people of opposing fans and Florida fans especially saw the guy on social media where all he's been praying for every weekend is for Miami to lose a football game, right? He's tired of everywhere he turns his neck, there's a U getting thrown up. So you got to love it, right? So I think at the end of the day, I mean, it fits the narrative, unfortunately, but it was clear as day. To your point, it was definitely an incomplete pass. They made the right call yet again, just like they've been doing all year, making the right calls. You could go back in this game and there's about 4 or 5 plays of Louisville that could have been called for holding or personal foul, hitting a guy on the sideline with a punch. Like, these were all missed opportunities as well. We can play that game any time. But at the end of the day, we all know the hardest thing to do in college football is get the W. Doesn't matter how it looks. You just got to get it done. And we did just that. And as bad as the defense looked yet again, especially the secondary and linebackers early in the first half with missed assignments, look, guys, I don't think we're going to play another power offense like we just did with Louisville. But at the same time, we still got to play assignment football. We're going to be playing FSPU this upcoming week. This is a team that just lost for the first time in history to Manny Diaz and the Duke Blue Devils with a quarterback that threw under 80 yards to win a football game. So I'm not too worried about this FSPU team this weekend. We'll get into that next week, man. But hey, Miami gets another dub. You got to love it and you got to enjoy it. We probably won't change in the rankings, unfortunately, but who cares? Just keep winning and let's get to the ACC championship.
Well, if you really want to make Danny Cannell angry, you beat his beloved 1-6 Florida State Seminoles next week. Let's talk a little bit about that, because it's hate week now, and it's also homecoming week for Miami. The worst Florida State team in 50 years. Actually, I don't even know if like 3 years ago they were this bad, but a really bad Florida State team is coming to town We will talk about it when we come back. We got Brad Tejeda with us. I am Alex Dono. We got to pack the rock this weekend. We're not done yet. You want to keep it locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. And folks, I already know you're keeping it locked to Game Time. This is the only ticket app that I use. And if you're looking for last-minute tickets for Florida State visiting Miami this weekend, guys, the prices keep going down. I remember talking about this last week, and it was tickets starting at around $108 for Miami hosting Florida State. They're now down to $98. You can get in $98. That price will probably go down even later on in the week to watch Miami and Florida State this weekend. Game Time not only has the best deals, they have the best features. New feature called Game Time Picks makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I love the all-in pricing feature at Game Time. You see the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. So, Florida State at Miami this weekend. Miami's going to be big favorites in this game, Brad. I'm just a little worried that we're going to win this one like 70-40. Like, are we? Does the Florida State offensive renaissance start this week against Miami? And watching Florida State, Brad, like it's to me, there's not only like a locker room crisis there because you don't go 1-6 with that much talent if there's not disconnect behind the scenes, and it's also. It seems to me like a bit of a coaching crisis because, again, like there are pieces on that team, and I've watched a lot of Florida State football this year, and there's times where that defensive line starts making plays, and you're like, okay, maybe they're actually going to win this week, and then you get an interception, you get a snap over the quarterback's head, seems to happen a couple times every game, you get a catastrophic fumble. It's like a lot of self-inflicted wounds there. So, again, that Florida State team has talent. I'm not sleeping on them. They've just been unable to execute a competent 4 quarters all season long.
Dono, unfortunately, this Florida State team is a Hurricane fan. It's lovely and laughable to watch each and every week. You said you're not sleeping on this team. I'm going to tell you what, I'm snoring on this team. I am not worried at all. You got guys like Daryl Jackson taking trips to Cabo and Turks in the middle of the week before a game. Maybe he'll go to the Bahamas before he plays Miami this weekend. But I think this is an offense that isn't known for being high-powered at all. Other than the 21 points they scored outside the United States against Georgia Tech, they haven't scored more than 16 points all year. They just played a Duke team that beat Florida State for the first time in history with Manny Diaz as the head coach, alma mater for Florida State. So you got to love to see that. And they got beat with a quarterback that threw less than 80 yards in a football game to get the W. I'm sorry, folks, but we got a quarterback in Cam Ward that can throw for 80 yards in one drive. So this is going to be a very fun football game as Hurricane fans. You better make sure you pack the rock. I think you're going to see a lot of coaching staff and players this upcoming week, knowing that it's homecoming week as well for the Miami Hurricanes. I believe, right? It's homecoming week.
It is for there. Yeah. So we got the whole Friday. We got the whole boat burning. I needed to take my Z-Biotics last night, guys, because I had a few too many cocktails. But we got the whole homecoming is happening this week.
So, I mean, with it being homecoming, right, I think you're going to see a high-scoring game, and you're going to see this team and this staff really get on social media and make sure that we do pack the rock. You know, there's been a lot of us being vocal and some of us having the opportunity to go to all these away games. And one of the big telling things from not only just our fan base, social media, and what you're seeing from media as well on coverage is Miami's been traveling, right? That whole narrative of Miami fans don't travel, that's gone now, right? Because every single week away, it's a sellout for that away team. I believe this was the first ACC game of a sellout for Louisville in the last 6 years. again, and that ended up being against Miami this past weekend. You saw the weekend before that sellout against Cal, College game day for the first time. So I think, and then of course with South Florida, they had to open up the third tier in Tampa. So we travel. Now that we're 7-0 and we're continuing to still make waves, this is the time where I think our team, our staff, and our players deserve all our fans to, like you said, pack the rock this weekend, upcoming weekend against Florida State. Because even though I do think it's going to be a blowout, we need all the fans to be there and support this team on this magical season that we're having.
Yeah, let me see if I would imagine the opening odds are probably
they got to be in like
out
25. I would say like the spread's got to be probably like plus 25 or minus 25.
Miami favored by 19.5. So if you think they're going to win by 25 or more, bet the farm on that.
Take that all day. Yeah, take that all day.
Trying to see what the over under is. 52.5 point. I'm gonna take the over. Like if you've been actually, you know what? Just full transparency, I'm not literally gonna take the over because Brad, I'm so superstitious that I do not wager on any Miami games because I'm a known mush. So I keep myself out of it. But I do make recommendations that tend to work out for other people. And I've been telling you guys all year long, smash the over on every Miami game. And if you've been betting the over on Miami games, you're watching this from your yacht right now. So yeah, I would take over 52.5. I'll think about the point spread because, again, like I agree with a couple of the commenters that even though like Miami should dominate this game, weird things happen in this rivalry. So I'll take a win and I'll take another good Cam Ward performance. But I don't know. So Brad, do you want to? You did once this year predict the exact final score of a game. Do you want to take a shot at this one?
You know, actually, yeah. Why not? Let's do like 62 to maybe like 13, 62-13.
Wow.
62-13 Canes.
Okay, I like it. Well, he's
Brad. You got to remember this is a high-powered offense in Miami.
Yeah, it is.
We're playing an FS Poo team. They're not even FSU anymore. They're FS Poo. And I think when you look at this roster for Florida State, none of their guys are performing well. None of their guys are even there at this point. Like I mentioned before, they're in other places traveling. So I think a guy like Brock Glenn or even Luke at that point, whoever the quarterback is going to be for Florida State, I think this Miami team is going to be licking their chops. The trenches is what matters the most. And that is when it's not even close, night and day for Miami as far as that's standpoint. I think if Florida State does get any big time plays, it's going to have to come off special teams. I think that's been one of the things that's been hurt Miami is special teams. We got to get a little bit better at that. But hey, this is a Florida State team that last time they played in Hard Rock, they embarrassed us. So now it's our time to pay the favor back.
Well said. Make sure you follow Brad on X at Tejeda. Brad, check him out. Yeah, let us know, Brad. When's your next show for Caneswear? Where can people find that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Donna, for mentioning that. So you can find us on FTSN Network on YouTube, the Caneswear Daily Live podcast. We are pretty much about 4 or 5 days a week. I'll be on, whether it's me, some fans, some guests that we'll be bringing in from opposing teams, breaking down their teams, and then just breaking down the post game. I'll probably have a show tomorrow around 4:30. So you could check that out on FTSN Caneswear Daily Podcast.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate all of you guys for joining in. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe. Make sure you guys subscribe to the audio version, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey app, wherever you get your pods. And I'm actually going to be, we'll go behind enemy lines with my guy. He's not a Florida State fan, just so people know, but Brian Smith does host Locked On Seminoles, and he covers Florida State. We're going to be talking with Brian about the game on tomorrow's episode. So we'll talk to you then on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.